All right, Ryan, episode 9. Do you have anything witty for us to kick this off?
I don't have a goddamn thing, man. How about you? You got a joke?
I got nothing, man.
Sweet.
All right, guys, episode 9 off with a bang. My name is Chris. I'm from Shughead Gaming, and everyone probably knows who's next to me. That's Ryan from the VR Grid.
What
We are
up?
the Virtual Boys. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Of course, don't forget that if you want to listen to us instead of look at us, we're on all the major podcast services, so don't forget to check us out there and give us a follow if you want to listen to us. Also, leave a review. Ryan loves reviews. And don't forget to stay until the end. I guess it's not a forget, just stay till the end because we have a
Please.
pretty major announcement for episode 10. We're really, really excited. We've got a guest that's well, let's just say Ryan and I are going to have our Backstreet Boy moment, and on top of that, we've got some pretty big announcements for the channel as it kind of grows into its own thing. And of course, that's just because you guys have been listening and liking and making this fun for us. So we're giving her a go. Our topic today will be the VR industry. I can't talk. The VR industry specifically as it relates to promotion of its games, and I think this has been a problem since the beginning. Some of those issues still exist, but there's other issues now that really drive me crazy. Not just as a content creator, but that's also a thing. But also just for like your average user, and I want to get into that. This is kind of my baby topic wise. So I'm going to set the table, and Ryan's going to kick it off. I guess when VR first kind of like really started to kick it, which would be like 2016, really, let's just say, that's when it started to really get out of its development mode, and you got PSVR and blah blah blah. I mean, VR is really hard to advertise because it really is like it just doesn't matter what you put in the commercials. You've really just got to get headsets on people's heads, because for all of us who play VR, we know that, like, even, you know, Ryan, even if I'm away from my headset for a while, when I put it on, I'm like, holy crap, I forgot how cool this is. Like, and if I'm having that reminder sometimes, it just shows you, like, you really, you know, so there's fundamental problems with promoting VR, and I think it's one of the reasons that it's had a slower uptake than I think people wanted. I think there's huge issues moving forward now about, like, now that VR is kind of mature. I think it has some huge hurdles. I think it's like the biggest players, being like Oculus and PlayStation and Steam, are also one of the biggest reasons that VR is having a hard time getting to people. What do you think about that? I guess wherever you want to jump in.
I think it's true. It's kind of a weird topic. It's definitely one for me that's very bouncy. You can look back to, like I said, 2016 as being kind of like the year that everyone was promoting VR. Man, there was commercials for
It's
it.
bouncy.
I'm gonna bounce. I'm gonna bounce all over the place here. Is what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
But like 2016, like, there was commercials for this thing. I went to my movie theaters when we could still go to movie theaters, and I saw commercials playing on the screens while I was waiting for popcorn. Like, the message was out that VR was here, right? And that's one thing. Like you said, the message that VR is here is one thing, but to get people actually in the headsets is another. And there was a push back then. I think a very, very hard push for people to try VR. And I think the unfortunate thing is that VR wasn't ready for that push. We didn't have those killer apps and crazy games. So I think regrettably, maybe they should have kind of, saved that advertising money for 2020, 21. This is all hindsight, of course, because that advertising push, didn't really work. We talked about that before, where, the aspirations of VR, where people thought VR in 2016 would be in 2020, was like, man, everyone's gonna have a headset. It's gonna be like, this is the next big media form. Everyone's gonna consume it, and reality kind of set in, and it didn't end up being the be all and end all killer next level media consumption device that many developers and production guys expected. So I think now they're playing this weird game of catch up, where now that we have a phenomenal VR library of games, it's hard to push them because you're kind of only advertising to people who already have the headset. Because if you haven't tried VR, telling you how good VR is, showing you what this thing might look like, it's tough, man. It's hard. And then you start talking about the stores and how they organize their content, even for people that do have the headsets, and it gets messy. And you'll cover this more, I think, more than I will. But it's messy and downplayed. And I know we're also in a weird lull between PSVR 1 and PSVR 2, assuming it's coming out. And Oculus Quest 2 just dropped. But besides those two headsets, HP did their thing. But honestly, if I wasn't following VR as a VR, like what I do, content creator, would I know about the HP Reverb 2? I don't think I would.
If you were a PC VR guy or a PC gamer, you might, but I would say other than that, absolutely not.
And I think that's just the problem. I think VR can't break out of this niche bubble. With the asterisk being that Oculus Quest 2 seems to be putting a dent in that statement. But that being said, it's kind of still too early to tell if Oculus Quest 2 will do enough to kind of be that mainstream VR device that Facebook wants it to be. But yeah, I just think it's this niche bubble that VR just is having a really hard time escaping.
Yeah, I want to put a pin in that HP thing because I think that's a really good example of
all my examples.
What I think is wrong right now, like specifically right now. Or when I say wrong, I just say I don't mean it to come off as negative as that, as more of just like not being capitalized on, missed opportunities. Let's put it that way. I guess for clarity's sake, then, since we've kind of both given our overviews there, I think maybe I'll go back to that 2016 and move forward a little bit, and then focus on the here and now, because the here and now is actually what I'm the most interested in.
See, it's bouncy.
In picking your brain about. Well, it's not that bouncy, because once I bounce forward, I'm not going back.
Oh, well, I'm going to bounce back.
Okay.
I have no idea.
I mean, I think we've covered the issues with 2016. I think you brought up a really interesting point, is that 2016 stands out to me specifically with PSVR, because that's where we both started.
Yeah.
But the PSVR was the one, like, really, PSVR was the first, I think, like, Sony was the first company to really come out and, like, drop the advertising bomb. Like, they were the ones that went hard on, like, advertising for VR as we know it now, with like people like, whoa. I mean, there were some VR ads obviously before that, but Sony was the one that to put it on on mainstream TV and like really push it. Like, you knew about it. And it wasn't just news broadcasts, like news bites. They were advertising the crap out of it. They were putting headsets in stores. They had demo units up. They were doing it. Sony really gave it. And you can see when you go back to look at, it's like, you go into YouTube and type in like Sony, PSVR trailers or VR trailers or whatever. And there's definitely like, they really backed off.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they didn't, until, unless there was a game coming out, like Hitman, for example. But even Hitman it did not get the push for specifically VR. It got a VR trailer. It didn't get pushed like it did. Iron Man did. That's probably a better example of something where Sony stepped up again. But what you brought up, I thought that was a really, really interesting point, is you said that you feel like, how did you say it? That now they're trying to catch up. That's one way of putting it. But I actually feel like they're in a bit of a soft reboot especially with the Quest and Quest 2, because if you really look at it, I feel like Oculus is doing what Sony did in 2016. Now they're pushing the ads.
Mm-hmm.
The ads are everywhere. Their ads are, kind of a more modern, or more, just a different riff on what Sony was doing, of like people playing in VR and trying to create that excitement. Sony went with a lot of headshots. Oculus is going with like putting people in virtual worlds and stuff like that, like animated. But I really do. You and I have talked in previous episodes about how, like, the Quest is kind of like, a bit of a step back in some ways, in the fact that it's kind of it's focusing on numbers instead of graphics again, and older experiences are all being brought to this headset, because it's almost like the Switch, where we're getting all these Wii U games because they just didn't get a fair shake.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that never played them for the first time, and really, like, the Switch is almost surviving on the Wii U's, like, ultimate
I wouldn't
editions.
say surviving. I'd say thriving.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, exactly, right. But I mean, but that's the point, right? Is that like there's not actually ton of original, like mind blowing original content coming out for the Quest. They don't even need to, and that's kind of where I think that VR is at right now, where it's like there's a lot of great games out there, just for those headsets. So this kind of like this, like, okay, let's try this again. Now we're wireless. Now the resolution's higher, the cost points down. These were all hurdles, and they're kind of like, okay, let's just do this, all of that again. Meanwhile, PC's just kind of continuing on, and Sony's, we don't know, and
Treading.
that's something that
Sony's
we talked
treading.
about that in another episode. But that's not really what I think we're talking about here. It's more just like, and it's not conjecture like we've done in the past. It's more like what have they done and what are they doing now? I don't know. Did you want to talk at all about kind of any more about what happened between, say, 2016 and like 2019?
Like I said, you can blame. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff you can point to. I mean, just as far as, like I said, I think this all comes back down to like getting people to try VR and how they're doing it. And like I said, Quest is doing a pretty decent job from what I can see. As far as, you know, according to them, their sales are through the roof. I've seen the ads to kind of justify those sales. You know, it's a hot ticket item. You can't, you couldn't find those things all throughout Christmas. So going back, I think it's like I think VR. You know, I said playing catch up, and kind of like you said it's kind of like a soft reboot. VR, you know, 2016 was not a good year for VR. It came out, and you know there was obviously praise from the VR. You know, this is a brand new medium. It got praise, but there was also like, you know, a lot of those VR compilation videos of people throwing up, and you know, like people like, you know, like stumbling and fumbling and hitting themselves and all that stuff, and that stuff went viral. And I think that VR even as a guy who's shared VR headsets with a bunch of people are leery. Like just the average person, they can be leery putting those things on their head. Just like it kicks ass. Like try this. Like, no, you know, it's fine. Like I'll do it another day. You know, it's okay.
Oh,
it's
I
okay.
get that. Yeah.
And you know, and I'm not sure. I have never asked to see where that kind of hesitation stems from. But I can't imagine when you see guys who are like in the middle of a mall trying to climb an invisible wall and then falling on their face as a way to be like, yeah, I want to do that. I think, and ironically enough, I do want to do that when I see that.
I was gonna say I did. I was like, that's fucking amazing.
But I can see that, like that embarrassment factor of being around people when you don't know, for your first time, you don't know what you're experiencing. You've heard about VR, you know, it's supposed to be this cool thing, but like, what if I make a fool of myself? And so there's
I think that's some of it. There's an embarrassment factor. I think there's an intimidation factor. I think some people are also scared about like losing their reality, like losing that sense of like there's a sense of control.
By the way, that's awesome when that happens, and enjoy that because you lose that.
Yeah, I know you do. A little bit you do until something redefines it, like, you know, like a Half-Life. That gave me that moment again. But you know, that's something we've talked about in the past and probably talk about again. But there is a fear factor around that. I am the VR pimp from my types of gamer video, and I've VR'd a lot of different friends, and I've definitely seen that pushback more often than not.
Yeah.
And it is like, oh, I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's like, and I have had some friends that have jumped in and not felt awesome, and then that leaves a stigma. It is what it is. I mean, that's something I don't know if VR can really do much about, but games media
Well, then that's where I was going to
sure
go
didn't
with
help.
No, then that's what I was. The last thing I was going to say is also sickness was brought like to the forefront of VR. Was like, I swear to God,
80% of people.
Dude, it was insane. Like it was like literally like if you put a VR headset on, like once you got past all the vomiting, it was going to be pretty fun. And that's not the case at all. I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% people experience some type of VR sickness, and even then, that just could be just like sweats and a little bit of dizziness. To the more extreme cases, which are even more rare. But anyways, that's the message that got put out there in 2016 and 17. So now it's up to these developers or these headset makers, I guess, too, who are still making these headsets to kind of like push back against that message. Like, there was some bad PR at that time that I don't think VR ever fully came back from. And so I think you kind of need to pushing is the right word, but you got to kind of like just make sure people are aware of what's available now compared to what was happening 2 to 3 years ago. The VR landscape has changed. The resolution of the headsets has increased. The things that you can do to minimize sickness, which you also did a video upon, or video on, Like they're there. These things were in place where in 2016, 17, we were like, people were like, how does this work? I think I heard Ginger works. Like these were the people were still like trying to find ways to like minimize sickness. We found those things. Those solutions are now there. They're basically concrete, depending upon who you are, and you can find the right solution that works for you, whether it's just shorter experiences, whatever. But I'm getting way off topic here, except to say that the VR still has to come back from that. And I think in doing that, you need to really showcase. One, you need to showcase the games that you currently have, and also this is like it's really tangential for me, but you got to bring in other franchises too to kind of like say like, look, we got the new Assassin's Creed is a VR game or something like that to kind of like to make people care about VR again that wrote it off 4 years ago. Because I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about here. I know, and we'll get more into the stores and stuff as well, because the stores aren't really doing a lot of consumers favors anyways. But that's where that's where I'm coming from with this argument, is that basically VR is playing catch up with what they need to do to make this thing as viable as possible to everybody who might want one or should want one. Does that make sense?
Like my the way I'm looking at it is to say between 2016 and 2019, 2020 doesn't, and even to today, the issues are still going on to various degrees. You got games media, like big games media, like IGN, GameSpot, whatever, and even your big YouTubers, huge influencers like PewDiePie and others who seem like they're scared of VR, and it's not click heavy. And it's like, and it's like we're not getting the clicks, so we're not doing it. It's like games media stopped becoming when we grew up with the magazines and stuff, it stopped becoming about the newest greatest thing, and it became more about like what's gonna click. Like IGN will do 100 like different versions of this of news around Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever, and then just like not even acknowledge the fact that like Medal of Honor just came out in VR. Like it's like, what the hell are you doing? And this has been a problem. Plus, they're getting better, but like your IGNs and stuff, they would always have people like either previewing or reviewing these games who didn't know VR, play VR. They had all the comfort settings on, and oddly, people aren't interested when like the previews they're seeing are like jerky click turning and blinders coming on. It's like, you know what? It's like, I get that those things are there and people need those, but that's not how you show. It doesn't play well when you're watching that. It's not a good view. It looks janky as shit. So games media is a problem there. I also feel like a lot of people's first experiences. You've got your obviously your Google Cardboard, your Gear VRs, your Labo VR for some people, and all three of those I think were like, for some people that was the gateway drug, but so there's a benefit there. But for a lot of people, it was it's not 6 degrees of freedom. It's like the shittiest way to experience VR, really, and the frame rates were bad on some of that stuff. Then you've got the arcades. Now your arcades are starting to show up, and they're showing like they're using Rifts or they're using Vives and stuff like that, and like big games. But there's a lot of those crappy ass, like they're like literally like the modern version of the quarter rides, where you get in there and experience VR at like 30 frames a second. And you know how many people I've played VR with? They're like, holy crap, this is nothing like that piece of shit I played at the mall. Yeah, like that mall VR did more damage to VR than just about anything, I'd say. And then hitting on the topic that, so you've got your public arcade experiences, then you've got your crappy cardboard experiences. These are all these efforts to try to get people to try VR. But it's like, but if their experience is shitty, like, if you have a bad hamburger, you're not going to go back to that burger place. And then on top of that, you hit on it. It'd be awesome if like companies came out and really gave it a go, like here's Assassin's Creed or Call of Duty in VR, like we all want. But if you don't do it justice, if you don't really give her, and how many times have we seen these games, they're experiences, so they're free, like the DC stuff and the Marvel stuff, and just like it promotes the idea of it being gimmicky, and that's still going on.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, if you're gonna do it, you gotta do it.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. And like I said, it still feel it like as I think about this, it does feel kind of feel like 2016 all over again. Only it's like maybe this time they'll get it right.
And they do seem to be. I do feel like there is also just an aspect of, and I think this is kind of goes without question, but the tech is where it needs to be now. It's just like like I love my PSVR, but the Quest is it's a much easier way to just, here, put this on your head.
Yeah.
Like I demoed it just last week to my buddy's kids, and I basically just gave it to them to try for the weekend, and he's like, okay, so like, what do we hook this up to? Like, what else do we? I'm like, no, it's all in there, man. He's like, seriously? Is it running off my phone? I'm like, no, that is the VR thing. You just put that on your head, and you just hold those controllers, and all the games will be in there for you. And he couldn't even comprehend it, though. He was like, because he was so not knowledgeable of where VR was at.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's definitely an advantage.
no, for sure. And I know we definitely come off sounding like Quest fanboys when we talk about the Quest. Just because, and it's because it's the only option out there, and it's a solid option. I mean, I'm not gonna. I mean, I would say I actually am kind of a Quest fanboy. It sucks it doesn't have any competition, because I would love to see kind of where that bar can be raised, because right now Quest is they're doing whatever they want, because there's no one competing with them in regards to that standalone VR. That being said, that standalone VR headset, the Quest and Quest 2, that's what you show people VR in. I mean, the Oculus Go, the Gear VR, like the cardboards, all those things that you could kind of show people that were standalone before. There were, like I said, there were solid experiences on them, but they don't, that's 6 degrees of freedom when you can actually walk around your physical space and have the world you're in react to your physical presence. That's how VR should be.
Except that if I want to show somebody, like you said, like those AAA experiences, like because there are some examples of VR like really, really delivering, like on not just people's expectations but their dreams, right? And those are not on the Quest, not yet. I mean, really, those are more those are on the PlayStation and the PC. Those, your Hitmans, your Half-Lifes, your your Farpoints, and like just like there's like those real experiences that really do give it a go. No Man's Sky, stuff like that.
I think looking at
there's
VR
that
as a gateway drug, I think Quest 2, or like VR as a drug, I think Quest 2 is now the right gateway drug.
Yes, perfect. It's what Gear VR should have been.
Yes, and even then, like even going back to 2016, like Gear VR, man, the reason why I got a Gear VR is because it came free with my Samsung phone. Like if you bought a Samsung phone, you got a free VR headset. This is the kind of stuff that was happening only, I guess, 5 years ago now. So there was a pretty heavy push in 2016, and we just haven't seen it. We haven't seen that push since then, up until, like I said, with the Quest, specifically the Quest 2 really is kind of where I've seen that push even more than Quest 1. But I mean, PlayStation, when's the last time you saw a PlayStation ad? They said Iron Man. I saw a banner for a PlayStation VR that said, hey, it works with PS5, a banner on like the side of my browser. But I mean,
well, they're not pushing PS5, and we've covered that, I think, to death about why that is, because it is a communication thing, and I actually agree with them not pushing.
No, it was a banner for PSVR. It was a banner for PSVR that said works for PS4 and PS5.
Oh, I know. I'm saying I also agree with why Sony's not pushing the connection between those two. I mean, I understand it sucks for a lot of people, and I feel that, but I do understand from a communication standpoint, they really do need to kind of like support it, but sever that link.
Even
visually
going into like, the Facebook Connect there would be the when we kind of got the big Quest 2 reveal, and they gave us a whole tirade of trailers for games that were coming to the Quest 2. When's the last time we saw a state of play from Sony with regards to
really
VR?
Push it.
We haven't seen anything from Sony that pushes anything upcoming for VR. I mean, Hitman 3 was announced it was in July, so maybe that would have been a state of play. But that's the last time. That was 8 months ago.
And I told you, this, and I've never said this, I don't think, out loud. I won't use names, but I do know someone who was working, on that side of Sony when it came to the VR state of play that we all kind of remember if you follow that, where I think No Man's Sky was announced, and it was quite VR heavy. and the pushback was pretty hard. We saw it in the media, but the pushback was also Sony felt that, and they're like, it's not just our imagination. Sony did backpedal, and that's, we've talked about that a little bit, but it also plays into this conversation is that Sony's in a weird spot because they're promoting two consoles at the same time, and the priority has to go to the big boy, which would be the console, like the PS5, the PS4 before it, and so that works against it. That is a problem that Sony has, and it's going to continue to have that problem unless, like I've kind of speculated at, is that they push the next VR headset under the Sony, like under a broader Sony entertainment, and move it away from the PlayStation brand a bit, and then have it so it does tether. I don't think that's realistic, but the patents for some of their VR stuff is not coming from Sony's game side, so that was interesting. But I mean, that let's use that as a segue then into like kind of some of the problems we're seeing.
That's so funny.
Now,
I was just going to segue. I was literally going to do the same thing. I was like, speaking of Sony and a segue here, I was going to say, even though Sony's definitely in a weird bubble, so I do understand their dilemma as far as what they're promoting. But they're not doing themselves any favors by, if you look at the current PlayStation Store, if you go, the store on the PlayStation 5, it looks okay. Everything's kind of organized the way it should be. If you visit their browser store is an absolute nightmare. If you were, as a VR guy who would like every week check and see what's new now and just go to the VR section and do it, it's a mess. You can't do the simplest things now that you could before to find the content you want. It's an absolute mess right now, and it seems to be a mess they're fine with because they're not fixing anything. They're just like, yeah, this is the new layout, guys. And they're basically trying to feed you content without the ability to actually have you look up content you want. And this ties into Steam as well, and even the Oculus Store to an extent, where they're not pushing, I don't think, what they should be pushing anymore. Beat Saber. Every time I go to a VR page, Beat Saber is always on there. I get it.
And it's hard to blame them because it's what sells, and it's a money thing.
But everyone's already know that.
I know.
Like everyone is, no one's going there to be like, oh, I got a VR headset. What's Beat Saber? Everyone, like, if you go buy Beat Saber, this
becomes the click thing again, right? This becomes the games media thing of like, are you interested in growing VR, or are you interested in like making the buck and getting the clicks type thing? And it's like, yeah, Beat Saber is ingrained. Like everyone, it's like Beat Saber's become VR's Mario. Like it's what you associate almost for a lot of people. And I wish that Oculus, was like, that's like, okay, so I want to talk about the stores separately, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So let's stick to Sony for a second, because this is the core of what I wanted to talk about, is like now my frustrations. It's like, because I feel like I think we've gotten to the point where we've established, you and I, like the tech is in a better place now. They've started to promote better. There are better VR arcades. No one can go to them right now, but they're there. Maybe
price
they're
point
still
too.
open.
The price point too.
Yes, exactly. Like everything's.
Cheaper.
It's like, you could argue that like the Quest is about the same price as a PSVR, but you don't need the console, so it half the price. Even PC gaming's gotten cheaper. Like like the GPU that you can get now for like $800 is like unreal. So that's, it's still really expensive for, like, it's still more than a PS5, but the barrier to entry on PC's gotten better as well. So that's a thing. But my issue, and this is where I really want to go, is I feel like developers, and also, and mainly the, I guess kind of a publisher slash like the storefronts, being the big ones being Sony, Steam, and Oculus, do not do VR any favors, like you said. In fact, I would say they're becoming its biggest hindrance, in that, like, it's like, do you have any marketing people on board here? Like, for those of you who don't know, I've got a marketing degree, so sometimes I'll be like, oh, I know what I'm talking about. But I only mention that so you don't think I'm completely talking out of my ass. And why it's maybe really frustrating to me is because I'm like, what are you doing? The PS5 store, I think, is actually pretty garbagey. Like, it's basic. The only reason it's not total shit for PSVR people is because there is a PS5 section, at least, still there. sorry, a PSVR section. It's pretty basic. You bring it up and you can see it and you can organize it by new releases or whatever. But like that's at least that is a section on there. But the PS5 store is horrible. Like all the ability. I mean, you can basically just sort the like the whack of games that you're seeing, the top 50 games or whatever, by what you want to see. There's no more, you can't sort it by like just to look at all the sales that are going on. You can't see all the PS Plus stuff. You can't see just the upcoming releases. It's all just banged in there. It's a clusterfuck, and that's not doing the PSVR any favors, because it should have the PSVR. It should have a PSVR store within the PS5, and then it has all the functionality. So you can look at the genres, you can sort it the way you want it to. You could see the sales, just the PSVR sales. Like the PS4 would, at least that store sometimes, if it was a big sale, would allow you to click onto a tab and look at the sale. The PS5 right now, it's like it's a real shit show.
So I just went to the PlayStation Store online here on the website browser. Scroll to the very bottom of the store where the PSVR button for the section is. I go to the PlayStation VR section. There's no option to sort. There's no option to do anything other than view what they presented you. The first game is Concrete Genie. Second game is Minecraft, Resident Evil, Rec Room, Spider-Man, The Playroom, Tekken, Gran Turismo, Call of Duty, Hitman 3, Chess Ultra, Beat Saber, Trackmania Turbo. Trackmania Turbo demo. Watch VR, Until Dawn, Dreams, Minecraft. It goes through just random. It's seemingly
and
random.
80% of that is trash.
It's random. Like, this is totally random, and all I can do is go to the next page. So I have no idea what I'm getting. I have no idea I'm sorting this thing. It's not in alphabetical order.
So when you click on it, you see a couple of like games are like, ooh, Resident Evil 7, and then it's like shovelware. Like, what are you doing? And Sony's one of the better ones. Like, at least when at least on the PS4, it wasn't bad. They said they had at least they had a PSVR section, and they would promote, they would promote sales, and they would promote big games. But that's my problem. They would promote only the biggest titles. So unless you were, Farpoint, Iron Man, Everybody's Golf, like those types of games
Sony
that they wanted.
Sony published
they decided to get behind, or something that they knew was going to be a smash hit, like a Beat Saber. Nothing, and it was like, I get that, because it's not what's selling, but it's not going to sell if you don't get behind it. And in games media, acting like they're afraid of it, that's a very similar kind of reaction to it. But specifically the stores, and this is if I had to give you my number one problem right now for VR gaming across all three storefronts, is that they either don't have, or it's horrible, like Steam has something like it, an upcoming release schedule. And this is where I wanted to go with this, is that I understand that it's not just, I mean, we've complained in the past, you and I, or commented in the past, that you never know what's coming the next week in VR. It's the Wild West, and sometimes that's very exciting, but it's also very frustrating, especially as a content creator, when you just have no idea what's coming. Like, how many times over the years did you and I and in our VR groups go, does anybody know what's coming out this week? And it was like, maybe the drop gave you something on Sony's side of things, but there's nothing like that for the Quest and PC. You just you hope you hear about it, and unless you're like a Twitter fiend and you're just scouring for anything, or you're on Reddit all the time, or on the Facebook pages, I mean, and even then you might not hear anything about it. Like,
there's
and you've got guys like Steve Knows and Polish Paul that are trying to give just dig for any bit of news that they can, and it's just like I get that the VR scene across all three storefronts is we are very much in it is very much an indie driven industry right now. But because of that, if indie games is what you've got, then you need to start treating those indies like they are AAA studios, because they are, in a sense, for your storefront. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is then you need to start being accountable to that. Like you need to contact these studios and go, when's your release date? Like make it mandatory. Like you don't get to come on the store until like we have at least like a 4 weeks notice. Like none of this ta-da. Like and sometimes big games.
I
But
mean,
like that to me that starts and stops at Sony, Oculus, and Steam. There has to be, for the sake of just virtual reality and just like store curating in, across the board. There has to be some accountability and like regulations put in place.
I'd actually take Steam out of that equation just because of the way Steam operates, and the fact you can kind of basically release your game in any version at any time on there. It's a very open source platform, and they very much welcome that. So just it's hard to call Steam to it because a lot of those games are unfinished, honestly, or games that may be looking for support via early access, whatever, whatever. But that is much less so for Oculus and especially PlayStation.
Well, I mean, yeah, they basically have to release them
Yeah,
as full games,
and it's
even if there are early access
I
still.
mean, and to your point too. I mean, there's as far as the PlayStation side of things, like someone sees trophies pop up for a game in a store, and it's like, oh man, like the trophies are up, which means the game will be out in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Not a guarantee. That sometimes it's taken like 2 months for a game to drop after trophies magically appeared in their PlayStation trophy catalog, whatever.
We've seen games pop in and then they be yanked out for another month or two. But I
Yep.
just before we move on from it, you hit a really important flaw, like in what we're in this whole conversation is that the early access thing. And I've interviewed developers and asked them this, and they said, yeah, it's difficult because you've got a game that's not finished. But it's good enough that you want to put it out there because these guys, if they're small studios, this is their Q&A process. Like this is their testing phase. They put it out there. It's like if you put it on PC, great. It's on Steam, early access. Everybody knows and expects that the game is a work in progress. And they can even communicate in there like what they're working on, what the plan is, how long early access is going to last. Like there is that kind of transparency. You want to put it out on PlayStation or Oculus, providing that they'll even let you. Um, they just have to call it a done.
Yeah.
Like we've gotten so many games on Sony specifically. Oculus is, they're like, no, you go to side quest. But like Sony is like, we've gotten games that are like, these are early access titles on PC, and then we're getting them and complaining about them because they're sold to us as games done.
For more expensive than the PC version too, and it's like like
But
to double down
but it's
against
like
it.
something as simple as Sony being able, just Sony let them say it's early access.
Yeah.
Like because your expectations are, you're not managing expectations because you're not telling us that. Then we play it, it sucks, it's janky, it's missing shit, and then people go, "This is crap."
Yeah, no, I mean
Done. Like
examples of
that's
that.
that's and that's their experience now.
Yeah, like you Aspire One, we talked about Gollum, these games that launched with not great launches that were subsequently patched and made much better, but because of that initial hate, those games are basically dead in the water because you find a review for Gollum. Every single review from Gollum, minus mine, basically says that this game controls like crap. That these are limiting. It causes sickness. It's just it's not good VR. And when the game launched, it wasn't. It was a really awkward system in place that it's unfortunate developers chose to release it that way. They fixed it within a month. I want to say a month or two. But I mean, IGN's, GameSpot's, all these bigger companies that actually did review it, they're not going to go back and revisit this game because the developers decided to fix it after the fact. It's done. And so it's that kind of stuff too where you kind of got to make sure when you release, if like I said, early access would definitely allow a lot more leeway with that kind of stuff because then
I wouldn't call Gorn early access. I would say that
I didn't say
starts to
Gorn, I
play.
said Gollum.
I meant Gollum. Sorry, I
Oh,
wouldn't call Gollum. I mean,
no.
Gollum felt finished,
Yeah.
but I think Gollum is the other problem we were talking about in that it's like get your head out of the sand. Like, are you actually testing this like outside of your small little circle of people? Like,
No,
like
that's
you look at Big Box how they tested the crap out of Pop One.
yeah.
Look at how successful it is. That game hit the ground and it was like really polished. because they tested the crap out of it.
Even look at Alvo.
Alvo. Yeah, I was gonna say Alvo looks like it's going a similar route, and like, I mean, they were antsy to release that, and they pumped the brakes because people are saying it's awesome, but it's not there yet. Good example. I'm just saying, I think that Gollum, some of its fatal flaws were just like Sony, because they published that, and the studio, I don't remember who made it, just like, duh, like, come on, guys. And that goes back to Sony's problem of being like putting wanting kid gloves on all their games, and like sometimes making them like crap because of that. But like, and I get your Steam comment, that makes a lot of sense, but I mean, maybe a middle ground could be early access is one thing. If you want to come early access, that's basically that can be the Wild West. But when you're releasing and you're leaving early access, then all the rules apply of 4 weeks notice. It ends up on a coming soon list. And then like, this is the tough one, like, promote it. And I honor these indie devs, like, literally their promotion is influencers like us, bigger and smaller. And it's like, and that's all they've got. I get that. But that's where I start to put the onus onto Sony and Oculus.
I totally agree with that.
And Steam. It's like, these guys can't afford this. So you would at least have to use your storefront. Like, okay, like, you said that Steam's less of a problem, but then like Steam still has just a little VR tab. I was like, it's like, isn't it like within the genre list of the main games? It's a genre.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, you have a Steam VR, then have a Steam VR store.
Well, once you go to the VR tab, then it's like a VR page.
Exactly. But that's shit communication, though. Like it looks like an afterthought. It looks like a genre of video gaming, and it's not. It's a different way of gaming, and like, they should have like at least like a big tab at the front that clicked you over to Steam VR, and then you could have all the options of genres and upcoming things. And Steam kind of does it. They have the sale tab along the side, but you have to find it first. You have to find that VR section first.
You kind of brought that up, and this is now one of those bouncy thoughts I had. But even going back to like the Game of the Year stuff from last year, and how it was like the best VR game, and then you go through a list of 5 games that play completely different because they're from 5 different genres. But that's just your best VR game. And I had said like last year, like, I cannot wait until a time when your best platformer just has a VR game in there because it's a solid platformer, and not be excluded because it's a VR game. And that goes to your point as far as how these stores are organized. They're kind of organized in the same way, where VR, even though VR has all these genres, it's still put into one category. This is your VR store. And even though you have all these genres in there, it's still like, so, what's the best VR game of the year? Well, how do you, it's the same as saying what's the best game of the year without acknowledging just how many different genres there are. And that's definitely how some of these stores come across. Like I said, PlayStation Store, you can't organize by genre. If you're looking for a platformer or a shooter, you got to sit there and just scroll. And then if the banner art isn't really clear if that is a shooter or not, then you got to click the banner and see if that, it is a shooter. As it turns out, it's actually like a puzzle game. I mean, who knows, right? It could definitely be done better. I mean,
it's just a huge communication problem. I mean, Oculus, to be honest, not surprisingly, is doing it the best. But again, that's not a knock. It's not really a knock against Sony, because again, it's just, okay, like, it is Sony's store needs work. I mean, the PS5 store is shittier than the early PS3 stores. It's so really bad.
It's so bad.
So yeah, shame on you, Sony. But I mean, what I mean, I guess, is that Oculus has a simpler job of the fact that like, they're basically they are a VR console now.
Right.
Like, they are, because they are a game system, not just a peripheral. And like, obviously we refer to PSVR as kind of a standalone thing, but the truth is it is just a really, really advanced peripheral for another console, and with a higher selling user base. So at least with Oculus, their market is that it is VR. So when you go to their store, it's all VR.
And it's organized, like I said, everything I just bitched about as far as categories and genres. The Oculus Store does that. Everything's broken down because it is just a VR-centric store. So I would just to clarify that the Oculus does that.
And don't I don't want us to forget, there is a pin in HP there. I'm going back to that. You're not off the hook, guys. and what I mean by that is Microsoft. But Oculus, like Oculus is, there's a lot less to complain about. But again, still like no upcoming release tab.
No.
They'll just promote a few games that maybe like are like that, like they think people are going to be psyched for because they want them. I don't even. Can you even pre-order games on the Oculus Store? I don't think you can. I think it just says coming soon, and that's all you get.
Yeah, that might be it.
Which I'm not a big fan of pre-orders, anyways.
No, neither am I. Especially,
but
yeah, no, I agree.
But in some ways, it's kind of like, yeah, but I'd love to see the same hype around it. Like pre-order and get some extra shit. Like at least there'd be that hype train around it.
I'd love to know, actually, just kind of another little bubble here, but I wonder if this is just like a bigger, maybe hints of a bigger problem where these devs or these stores aren't aware of these releases in advance. I mean, I know
they're not, but I guarantee you they're not. And like how many times have we heard from developers specifically on Sony, and I bet you Oculus is similar, where they've been in like the Q&A process for months, and as soon as they pass it, it's out. Like, don't do that. Like, I mean, Sony, if you're gonna be bullies around your Q&A process, which I actually fairly support, then be bullies about the release of it too. Like, set them up for success. Like, geez, like it's like there's some brilliant games that have just been like just crapped onto the store, and maybe they go viral from like a bunch of influencers that really dug it, and it gets picked up by larger media and such. But it's like the Oculus Store, I think its biggest problem is like, I still think its biggest problem is not having upcoming games, not telling people and psyching people up for what's coming. Their sales, their stores is not organized that well. Like their sales and stuff. It's hard. You can't sort them by genres. You just see a whack of sale. And the other big problem I have with the Oculus Store is it feels like Netflix in the fact that it's like tiered. Like you go, ooh, fantasy, sports, but what I don't like about that is it's like a curated row. And then it's like, okay, well then there's a little like see more button.
See all button. Is a see all button?
Of course there is. It's just, and I get it. I mean, I guess I shouldn't really hate on that. The curated bar is probably really nice for your average person but I just really want to be able to like go into the store, click on a genre, see it all.
I think you're whining a bit in regards to that specific point.
Maybe.
Like I said, I really think looking at the Oculus Store, they are by far doing the best job as far as VR. Once again, they are only tailoring to VR, so it's kind of easier for them to do that. But I think part of the problem with the Oculus Store is just how things are promoted. The same stuff is generally promoted. I mean, even if a game drops that week, if it doesn't make a big impact, and it's hard to say like, this is Oculus's fault, because if a game doesn't make a big impact, like should they keep promoting it? Maybe not. But a lot of games are put to the wayside in favor of classics. Arizona Sunshine pops up on the Oculus Store 3 times in 3 different lists. Arizona Sunshine's a great game. But it's also a 4-year-old game, 3-year-old game, somewhere in that ballpark. Like, are there not better games we could be promoting, more recent games? And that's where
something like a tier that would be maybe like viewer's choice or editor's pick or something.
No, that's
where they
definitely a
could,
solution.
where they could curate like hidden gems. I actually think they used to have a tab in there that was like hidden gems, but I looked at it, I was like, really? Are you calling these gems? I'm like, I feel like there's another ulterior motive going on here. I think it's more like, please buy these bottom feeders. We'd really like to move these.
It kind of circles back to that point we made at the beginning, though. This does feel kind of like a reboot year for VR. So because of that, because there's so many new headsets on the market for Quest anyways, and even Sony still had some pretty decent sales last year too. I'm not sure about the other headsets. But because there's so many headsets, because of COVID definitely helped with that. Maybe that's the reason why these stores look the way they do. I mean, they've always looked like that, so maybe I can't really say that. But maybe there's a reason why they're pushing, they're pushing Beat Saber, they're pushing Arizona Sunshine, they're pushing Lone Echo or whatever, is because there's just been an influx, especially on the Quest side of things, of an influx of new players that maybe have no idea what these things are. So they're kind of pushing that. But the way these stores are organized, to me, it feels like they're organized like we're supposed to know what all these games are. And now me and you do, so we can kind of be like, yeah, okay, I know what that is. But if you didn't know, if you weren't like following every single week to see what's released, and you're like, yeah, I haven't picked up VR in 6 months, gonna go check out the store, and you don't know what those games are because you haven't been following the media, then you just don't know what they are. There's just no way around. There's no trailer, like, you know, you can't, you know, it's just not organized well, I guess. With the Oculus
They're
Store,
just relying. They're relying a lot. It just seems like these big companies are still relying too heavily on influencers, and then the indie companies to do their best.
Yeah, and the indie companies,
like
they can't.
You need to step in and help, and not just help, but also like help them from themselves and demand that they get their shit together. Like and organize, like, and not just crap the game up because like all of a sudden like they've gotten permission and they need to make money. Like I get that, but it's like you're not doing them any favors. Like a lot of times game developers aren't, if that's their skill set, they're not good marketers. They're not good company managers.
No.
It's like a lot of mechanics shouldn't be running their own shop. Because
No,
if
these
they're
are
really, really good mechanics,
Yeah.
chances are they're not business savvy.
like small dev teams. These are teams of maybe even
Yeah,
just one
they're doing
person to
everything.
even 3 or 4. Where their strengths are in game design. Their strengths are not in marketing. They don't know. I mean, the fact they even have a social media profile was like, man, that was a pretty big deal when we put together a Twitter profile. Like this is just they know what, or they shouldn't say, they kind of know roughly what needs to be done, but they have no way of actually doing it because they're too busy making their game. And then to sit there,
I mean, even Servios with Walking Dead Onslaught, like literally their PR company, like, oh, we didn't realize that the Sony stores had different time zones going on them. How do you screw that up when you're a PR company in charge of the launch? Like, I'm just saying, like, maybe Sony should have been like,
No, I agree. It's bizarre, and that's an issue we've chased over the course of Sony's coverage, like 4 years, where a game comes out Tuesday, but if it comes out in Australia, it basically comes out a day earlier. But if there's embargoes or whatever else, and it gets very confusing. And like I said, the fact that like no one at Sony in the last 3 to 4 years has been like, oh, by the way, time zones are a thing, is weird, and that's a whole, not even a separate argument.
They shouldn't even have to say it. Sony should just be like, when do you want your game released?
Yeah.
And then bang, bang, bang. Those stores auto.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, holy crap.
Same time throughout the whole world. Why is that so hard?
Well, you know what? But this is the company that took a decade to let us change our names.
This is true.
I'm joking, but I'm also half serious. Like, we had heard that they're behind the scenes on their system is a disaster because it was built wrong back in the PS3 days, and it's just been bandaged the entire time, and that's why it was not an easy task to get us to change their names, and they're still working on that system, because they're like, they can't just shut it down. So that could be something that's plaguing it on that side of things, because it's probably connected to the store and everything, but that's conjecture, but it's still a problem. Yeah, I mean, I think that really sums up kind of my issues, is that I just feel like so many key players, whether it be the devs, the publishers, big, like the storefront owners, they're just like, you got to step up. I agree. Because you're hurting it. Like,
well, even Sony, like, let's go back to the state of plays here, or even like the Facebook Connect thing is a perfect example. But I understand why Sony just can't release. Look, guys, upcoming games. Here's our it's not a state of play. This is just like Sony on YouTube. Just, hey, I mean, this is some upcoming games we're gonna, like down the line. That's it. Don't make a big deal of it. Your channel has like 20 million subs or whatever, so people will see that. They can choose to click on it or not. But then have that. Don't make a big deal of it. But just like make a commercial. Same with Facebook, Oculus. Same thing. Just make a commercial that just. I could go on online right now and get some commercials, or some trailers, splice them together, and make a compilation trailer. It's not a lot of work to like just do that, and then it gives people, it lets them know, one, that you're still supporting this thing, or not supporting it, but like still you're still, it's very much in your guys' line of sight. You're like, hey guys, look, there's still games coming, or here's what you can look forward to, and just leave it at that. Don't say it's a state of play. Try to attract everybody from under the sun who just loves Sony, and then just spit on them because it's just VR. Just don't do that. There's no reason why you can't.
How about PSVR state of play?
Sorry?
and promote it as such. Have a PSVR
No,
state of
I
play
agree.
and promote it as such. And if you don't want to know what PSVR is, don't tune in. I mean, there's people are still going to get butthurt about that because it is what it is. I mean, we've never talked about this, and I don't want to go down this road too heavily. But one of the things we've actually never discussed that really could happen is Sony could bust out the new PSVR headset and have nothing to do with the PS5.
It's possible.
They could go standalone, straight up standalone, with tether as an tether ready. But
We've touched on that, but not
but
as a
how
full...
how much simpler would that be for Sony though? If they were like, this is Sony VR, and we're gonna and everything we talk about and promote that, we're not telling you console owners you need this thing. We're not pushing this on you. It's its own thing, and that would keep things very separate. And then they could push it as its own console. I think that's unlikely, but from a communication standpoint, I'm sure that's something that's being discussed. Again, I'm going off of those patents that were coming out that were not from like Sony Entertainment, like the from their like game side. So I mean, I'm just saying that's a thing. That's it's a unique problem that Sony has.
Yeah, I mean,
With the dual kind of images and trying to have one support the other and not cannibalize it and blah 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 blah.
I think it's really easy. You just promote it separately. The problem is they don't promote it separately or don't promote it at all, and then it just leads to this confusion overall. Like there's no, like you said, a VR state of play. That's very simple. Very, if you don't like VR, don't watch it. That solves your problem. But I mean, like I said, after that state of play where it was very VR focused, they got so much hate and they reacted to it, which I think was the worst thing they could have did. All they had to do was just go back to just have a few VR things sprinkled in, would have been fine. But they literally, the next day to play, there was no VR in there. And it was very much, and there was games on the horizon that should have been in there.
It was a knee-jerk reaction. It was very obvious.
It's embarrassing that Sony reacted like that because, dude, everyone's still going to watch your next state of play just looking to bitch at it. Like you didn't lose viewers because of your state of play, but someone at Sony PR was like, whoa, we can't mention VR anymore. And, it's bad PR on there. It's bad PR management on their part for, I think, how VR was portrayed in Sony State of Plays after that one.
Okay, so I have one last point. We're coming up on our hour here. Fucking HP. So here's the problem. You've got that thing was what I'm talking about specifically, guys, is the Reverb G2, and that was co-developed by Valve, Microsoft, and HP. That's 3 companies, 3 heavyweights. And like you just said, who knows about it? Like, unless you're in the VR PC side of things, you probably really don't know what it is. And don't even get me started on so out of those. Okay, so you've got Valve, obviously, Steam. They've got a storefront. Okay, that's fine. But Microsoft it is using Windows mixed reality, so that's at the forefront. When you turn that thing on, I mean, it's full on Microsoft. And I have one. And when you go into Windows mixed reality and you go to their store, you know where you end up? On the Microsoft store. Not the VR, nothing. It's not even VR. Like there's almost there's VR in there. If you type in like Microsoft Flight Simulator, you'll find it. And you can buy it. And it'll play off of your like Microsoft, like whatever is handling the games on your PC side of things. But like it's not a VR store. You can't even get Netflix in VR, which I talked about. But I'm just saying, like, it's not even worth bitching about because it's a complete it's just a disaster. It's a non-issue. Like the Reverb doesn't have a storefront. You have to go use basically Oculus and Steam. And that functionality's not super easy either. You got to jump through some hoops. But if you're a PC user, you probably expect that anyways. So I won't go too further on that. It's just the fact that, again, it's just another example of like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, you're not making this easy. And like, don't use my HP because I'm like, ugh. It's just a pain in the ass for some of these reasons. Functionality, store, whatever. But it's like, shame on you, Microsoft. That's just like, you're letting it die. And, and that's a thing. And then the one last thing I wanted to hit on, which is kind of related because you talked about it. You said you wish the Quest had competition. and we have been seeing other headsets pop up recently going after the Quest. But there's a huge problem here. People are like, oh yeah, so awesome. Then screw Facebook. It's like they're not going to go anywhere unless they work out some kind of a deal with someone because they don't have a storefront.
Nope. I mean,
I don't care.
Apple is still. I'm still. We talked about it 2 episodes ago, and even though it was kind of a Apple bash heavy, Apple stands the biggest chance of making a dent against.
That's Apple. But even Apple has to answer that question.
Yep.
And if they're not running it on Android behind the scenes, which they're probably not,
that'd be so.
Of course
hilarious.
not. I mean,
that'd be
so
hilarious.
Funny. These games would then have to. You can't just throw them on the store. You can't just bring them. You can't just work out a deal and get them from. Get them from the Oculus Store or whatever. And it's like, and that's Apple. So like all these other headsets that are coming out, I don't know if people really stop and think like they're not probably going after the gaming crowd. They're probably going off the business crowd and media consuming, which is what a lot of people are thinking Apple's going to do too. More since we last spoke about it, a lot has come out about they think that's going to be focused heavily, especially with an 8K display, not on gaming.
No.
So anyways,
I hope it
I'm just, that's another topic entirely, but I just thought that was, as we look forward to these problems, not look forward, but like,
that was a weird way to say that.
Forward word.
My God.
I just see that being a thing. It's like, like if these guys can't get their storefronts together and these are the industry leaders.
Yeah.
Anyways, you know what? I complain, but at the same time, this is why I love this industry because it is the Wild West. Like it's just like it's like today. It's like what the Quest is maybe going to be 120 hertz.
Yeah, right.
What?
I know, right?
What? It's like okay, like that's part of the fun. But
there's
it's
your news
not
portion
exactly,
of our podcast, boys and girls.
Yeah, but it's not. There you go, and that's the news. Yeah. It's a fun industry for that, but it's also not exactly in its best interest. And I guess that's kind of where I'll leave it.
Yeah, I'll leave it. I've said it before, but I think 2020 is going to be a coasting year, and I don't think it's going to change. The problems we've talked about this episode, I think, are going to stand until next. I think next year. I keep coming back to 2021, and that's based around PlayStation as well, and it's also depending what happens with the Quest and everything else. I think for some reason I just have 2021 is kind of like the year VR gets it right, and I have no idea what I'm talking about.
You mean 2022?
2022.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just
2021 is kind of. I mean, I'll agree with. I didn't agree with you before, but yeah, I could see it as being a caretaking year. It's the year that Sony, gets their next headset together. It's the year that some of these big developers, like some of Oculus's first parties, work on their next bombs. Hopefully, it's the year that the stores continue to evolve. If Oculus doesn't have to focus on a new headset and a new UI or whatever, then maybe they can focus on that. I mean, with App Labs coming out, App Labs Side Quest and the main Quest store, I also think is a bit of a clusterfuck because it starts to become like it comes to be like the Disney Plus, Netflix Prime thing where it's like, I want to watch something. Where is it?
Yeah. No.
So that's a thing, but that's another conversation. But I'm just saying, hopefully this is the year that a lot of this stuff finds its footing without any big moves needing to be made on top of all that. So maybe you're right.
Yeah, maybe. I have no idea because I have nothing to back it up. I just really think that this year will be kind of a year of catching our breath and catching up and kind of just letting dust settle, even though that's not quite what I'm looking for. And with 2022 being the year that something magical happens.
Okay, well, and on that note, Ryan, the VR industry may be coasting through 2021, but Virtual Boys is not.
No.
We are moving forward, guys. We're having a blast. Those of you who seem to be watching seem to be enjoying the content. It's going to continue to grow and change and get more professional, I hope. Episode not too professional though. Especially if you heard the podcast we recorded yesterday. And on that note, that'll be some changes. We'll have some bonus episodes you guys can get access to, but we won't talk about that quite yet. But episode 10 is coming up, and there's going to be some big changes, big announcements on that episode itself. But what we're really excited to talk about, I think, is that Virtual Boys will be showing up on its own channel, which it is actually on YouTube, Virtual Boys. Next episode, You'll probably have to watch us there. We'll be promoting it though, so don't worry about the communication around that. We will be communicating with people, unlike other companies that we have
Heyo.
spoken about. But I guess what we really want to talk about is Ryan and I are incredibly beyond enthused to announce that you know what, I'm going to let you announce it because this is your hard work.
Okay, sure. All right, so like I said, episode 10, we've always planned on episode 10 kind of being our our mea culpa. I have no idea. No, that's like a finale thing. It doesn't matter. Episode 10 was kind of our big coming out episode, as it were. We figured by that time we'd have our crap together and have something relatively cohesive, and we kind of have our format down, and we think we've kind of basically got that. So yeah, we're moving to the new channel, Virtual Boys. I think myself and Shug will both have that channel tagged on our channels to more easily find it. And obviously follow our social medias, everything else. We'll make sure you know where to find it. Virtual Boys it's gonna have its own Twitter, its own just Twitter, I guess right now. We're gonna be doing our Patreon thing, which has some bonus, which can have bonus episodes and other content. So check that out. See if you want to hear more of us. We'll cover that
talk
later.
about that in more detail, though.
Yeah, we'll cover that later. But the big thing, once again, circling back to episode 10, we got as a special guest Mr. Victor Lucas from Electronic Playground and Reviews on the Run, Judgment Day for you guys that go back a bit for G4. And he's going to be our host for episode, or our co-host, our co-guest. We're going to let that guy talk because he is an industry veteran who does love VR. And I've wanted to speak to him, honestly, for a long, long time now. So, yeah, for the next episode, there's going to be 3 windows in this little bad boy. And we're going to let Victor Lucas talk all about virtual reality and how he views it as a guy who is very much embedded in the gaming and entertainment industry as a whole. Words are
yeah. I mean, being Canadians, literally, Ryan and I grew up watching. You know what? I actually caught myself yesterday. It's not Electronic Playground. It's Electric Playground.
It is Electric Playground.
What?
It is Electric Playground.
I know, but I've caught myself saying that anyways. But we grew up on this shit, which makes it even more embarrassing that we don't get the name right. And like Vic and his co-host Tommy Tallarico, who you might know. I mean, these guys are you would struggle to find more knowledgeable and more professional veterans in the game industry, and both of them are still very active in it. And if you haven't checked out Victor Lucas, his channel is EPN TV, and he's basically brought the TV show production quality and all over to YouTube, and he does daily news and gaming stuff. And let's just say he's a one man show. He has a team when it's not COVID time, and he is putting out better content than IGN could do any day. So hopefully you guys enjoy him as much as we do. We're very excited. I can't think of someone I would rather have on this show than Vic.
He's my number one pick. It was I was so, when he said yes to it, I was just ecstatic.
So that's what we wanted to do. I mean, moving forward, we're not guest heavy, but when we do have guests, we want them to count, and we want to have people on here that have something interesting to add to the conversation and not just promote their shit. And so you guys are in for a treat, because Vic has been around since, like, he's been doing this since like 94. The N64 days, 94. Like, and for him to comment on how he sees VR as it came in. I mean, he was reporting on this crap when VR first tried to do the Virtual Boy. Like, I mean, this guy, the retrospective that he can give and the way it's being discussed in the industry now, I mean, there is no one more interesting to hear about, at least in my point of view. So that's episode 10, guys. Make sure you tune in for that. And just to reiterate, there will be a promotional video that I will be putting together. It will run on my channel and Ryan's channel, so you don't have to worry about wondering where the new channel is going to be.
We will point you where to go. We will take care of you.
We will always be pointing you. We do plan to have some like short clips of some of our favorite points in every interview that will also kind of let you click over to watch the full thing. So it's not like we're abandoning it on our own channels. We just want to let it have its own voice. And so, yeah, that's that. Hopefully you guys will follow us. It'd be really important to us to have your participation and your allegiance.
Consume.
that's it for me, guys. Thanks a lot. Of course, I'm Chris from Shughead Gaming. This is Ryan from the VR Grid.
Yep.
You know where to find me. You probably know where to find him on YouTube, and you can find me also at Shughead on Twitter.
At the VR
And
Grid.
this guy at the VR Grid. And yeah, that's it. Great. That was a good episode. And they're all good episodes. But we'll catch you on the next one, guys.
Later, all.